Hello everyone and welcome to week 6 of Prehistoric Archaeology in Britain. This is the 6th and final week of the course. Last week we explored the Bronze Age and discussed the advent of new ritual practices, settlement styles and monumentality in Britain. Today we are going to explore the Iron Age in Britain, the final period of prehistory before Britain came under Roman rule in 43 AD. We will be examining a series of case studies focusing on themes of daily life, new burial practices, new forms of monumentality and expressions of power during this period, alongside the technological advances in metalworking which gave the Iron Age its name. The Iron Age began around 2,800 years ago and ended 1,957 years ago. This period is known as the Iron Age as it was defined by the advent of iron creation and use. Iron is made through the heating of iron ore to very high temperatures, a technology for which had not been created before this period. The Iron Age was also defined by new lifestyles and forms of settlement, new ritual practices and burial types, which we will explore over the course of this lecture. The sites we will examine include Butser Ancient Farm. This site was created for the experimental reconstruction of prehistoric houses, including the Bronze Age replica dwellings we considered last week. The site also contains an Iron Age village, which we will be examining this week. We will also be exploring the burial site of Lindow Man, alongside the hill fort at Maiden Castle, an Iron Age Brox in Scotland. Furthermore, we will be exploring the continued ritual use of earlier monuments such as Flag Fen during this period. The first site we will explore is Butser Ancient Farm. This is a site of experimental archaeology located in Hampshire. One of the main features of the farm is a replicated Iron Age roundhouse settlement and enclosure. During the Iron Age, settlement became increasingly nucleated. This is reflected in the replicas at Butser. Each of the houses is based on archaeological evidence from a number of sites. Butser Ancient Farm is an important location for experimental archaeology, using replica buildings and artefacts to understand features of Iron Age life which may be difficult to analyse at dig sites. Some of the structures on the site include domestic dwellings, an Iron Age latrine, a set of storage pits, and a granary. Experiments at Butser revealed that in the grain pits created through experimental archaeology, the storage of enough grain to feed an Iron Age family was possible for over a year. Other experiments have focused on understanding the effects of smoke from domestic fires, for example cooking fires, on Iron Age roundhouses. Pest analysis has also been undertaken at the site, with pest infestations in Iron Age thatched roofs being monitored through the project. These features are all important in terms of understanding what life was like for communities in Iron Age Britain. We will now explore the site of Maiden Castle hill fort located in Dorset. This site was in use between the Neolithic period and the Roman period. This broad time span demonstrates the importance of this particular location to local communities across thousands of years. The hill fort was constructed on site during the Iron Age. This comprised a settlement at the top of the hill, with defensive features such as ramparts constructed around it. A late Iron Age cemetery was also present on top of the hill fort, suggesting that the community was largely self-contained within the fort. Initially, the settlement was represented by a small early Iron Age village. However, this developed into a large organised town during the later Iron Age. There appears to have been a focus on defensive features during the early Iron Age, with a marked lack of interest in these features during the later Iron Age. This could be seen to reflect a changing political environment, perhaps with an initial threat of warfare, later developing into a more peaceful location. The cemetery at the hill fort contained some elaborate burials. Some of the individuals buried within the cemetery had suffered severe injuries, some of which had led to their deaths. This has been speculated to result from fighting against Roman forces during the later Iron Age, or possibly amongst other Iron Age groups. Brocks are a particularly interesting feature which developed during the Iron Age period in Scotland. They are only found in this region, suggesting marked regional differences between different Iron Age groups in Britain. Brocks are stone towers built across Scotland. However, their function is widely debated. The Brock of Mousa was created around 2,300 to 2,100 years before the present day. This feature comprises an intact stone tower. Analysis of the tower has suggested that it may have originally contained a wooden roundhouse. Many possible functions have been put forward for these features. Some scholars suggest that brocks represent defensive features, defending the inhabitants from other Iron Age groups, whilst others suggest that these towers represented symbols of power within the landscape and may have been the residences of the Iron Age elite. But brocks are clustered in some areas, whilst in other areas they are separated from other brocks by a great distance. Some interpretations have also suggested that the best way to analyse the functions of brocks is to examine them on a case-by-case basis, as one theory may not fit all of the features. Lindo Man refers to the remains of an Iron Age man recovered from a bog in Cheshire. He died between 2 BC and 199 AD, suggesting that he lived during the late Iron Age or potentially during the early Roman occupation of Britain. He has been exceptionally preserved in the peat bog due to the anaerobic conditions. As discussed in previous lectures, anaerobic refers to the lack of oxygen. Oxygenated conditions are also known as aerobic. This lack of oxygen prevents bacteria from surviving and causing damage and decay to organic archaeological artifacts. This is why many organic elements of Lindo Man have been preserved, including his skin, hair, and even his stomach contents, which revealed that his final meal was unleavened bread. Analysis of the remains also revealed that Lindo Man had been subjected to a violent and elaborate death. There were 3 main sequences, the first of which was identified through injuries to his head and back from an axe-like weapon or tool, alongside injuries to his knee. The second stage involved a cord tied tightly around the neck, indicative of strangulation. Finally, Lindo Man's throat was cut after death, and he was placed within the bog setting. Evidence of these injuries have led to speculation as to why he was killed in this manner. Some archaeologists suggest that Lindo Man was a Roman prisoner who was executed by Roman soldiers. Another theory is that he represents a ritual sacrifice by an Iron Age community. There is certainly a significance to the placement of the individual within the bog setting. Bogs are liminal places within the landscape, liminal meaning between places. Bogs may be characterised as being between land and water, as they contain part of both. Many other burials, artefacts and monuments in prehistory were located in liminal spaces, suggesting a ritual significance to their placement. This, to me, suggests that Lindo Man may be more likely to represent a ritual sacrifice rather than an executed prisoner, as his placement in a liminal location suggests that his death was connected to ritual elements. Wetwang Slack is an Iron Age site located in eastern Yorkshire. The site has evidence of burial activity since the Neolithic period, with Neolithic and Bronze Age barrows already present at the site. The Iron Age interments comprise a series of inhumation burials, each associated with a chariot. There are several male burials and 2 female burials accompanied by chariots. One particularly interesting feature at this site is the elaborate nature of the female burial, with grave goods including horse fittings made of bronze and a decorated box with decoration comparable to other artifacts from this period, including the Witham shield. The male burials are interred on either side of one of the female burials, suggesting that she held a high status within Iron Age society, perhaps representing a woman in the role of chieftain. It is interesting to explore this site within the theme of social hierarchies and sex-based roles in the Iron Age. Understanding the roles held by men and women in Iron Age society is something which burials can especially help to reveal, as grave goods are often indicative of relative status and the individual's occupation. This site is an important example of female power in the Iron Age. An interesting feature of the Iron Age is that the use of earlier Bronze Age sites, such as Flag Fen, continues into this period. This is evidenced through early Iron Age artifacts, including weaponry, being excavated on site. Some of these artifacts are also ritually broken and deposited, suggesting that these Bronze Age traditions continued during the Iron Age. One of the artifacts found at Flag Fen was an Iron Age sword, as seen in the image below. Other, more domestic artifacts included bronze shears in a wooden case, which were also deposited at Flag Fen and can be seen in slide 2. Liminality and ritual deposition, alongside ostentatious displays of wealth and power, continued into this period. This suggests that Bronze Age and Iron Age societies represented the development of a strongly hierarchical structure, which placed considerable value on the ritual offerings. During the later Iron Age and early Roman occupation of Britain, a number of Iron Age ritual sites were developed by the Romans into temples and other ritual locations. One example of this is Hayling Island. This is a site located in Hampshire, which began as an Iron Age shrine and was later developed into a Roman religious site. The location of the site in a liminal place, that of an island, is also striking in terms of the initial choice of the location as a ritual site by Iron Age communities. Other notable examples include Sulis Minerva at Bath. A statue of the goddess is displayed in the image on the right. Sulis Minerva represents the combination of the Iron Age goddess Sulis and the Roman goddess Minerva as a way of linking these two cultures. This reuse of Iron Age sites by the Romans suggests that they held continued importance, but that their meaning for Iron Age and incoming migratory communities changed over time. This conversion of Iron Age sites into Roman ritual sites was probably also a way for the Romans to lay claim to locations occupied by Iron Age communities, as a way of asserting their power over them. This lecture has explored Iron Age settlement development at Butser Ancient Farm and the development of hillfort settlement sites such as Maiden Castle. During the Iron Age, settlements became increasingly nucleated, perhaps even resembling proto-towns. These settlements had many facilities, including grain storage and structures housing latrines. We have also explored the development of possible elite residences in Scotland with the construction of brocks during the Iron Age. The uniqueness of these sites to Scotland demonstrates regional variation in terms of how living structures may have been built, and suggests the presence of different groups and communities in different areas of Britain. This lecture has also explored death and burial at Wetwang Slack, an examination of sex and status during this period. The other site regarding death and burial which we have examined is the potential sacrifice of Lindo Man, and the debate over whether he represented an Iron Age prisoner executed by the Romans or a sacrifice within an Iron Age community. Finally, we have explored the continued interest in earlier ritual sites during this period, particularly focusing on the continued deposition at Flag Fen alongside the development of other ritual sites. In turn, the Roman occupation of Britain demonstrates some continuity with the reuse of ritual centres such as Hayling Island in Hampshire and the transformation of these sites into Roman centres of religion and ritual. This concludes the lecture for week 6 and the course as a whole. The following slides are included to present the sources used to create this lecture. I have also attached several links to further study resources for you to use to explore topics from the lecture further. I have really enjoyed going on this prehistoric journey with you all, and I hope you all enjoyed it too. This week concludes the course Introduction to Prehistoric Archaeology in Britain. You have until March the 27th to complete all assignments and the course evaluation survey. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you have enjoyed the course.